guys, what's going on? Nivens here. Time for your weekly rock wind-up. First things first, though, the judge found us not guilty in a court of law. Therefore, I do not have public nuisance on my record because of my dogs. I don't know if you know the backstory or not. My neighbor lives two doors down, has a personal deal against us for whatever reason, and tried to take us to court and use the court systems in his favor. And because my dogs bark in the daytime, sometimes when they're outside, it's a whole long story that's wrapped up in just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. So let's move ahead to the actual rock and roll news. Another week, another DUI charge for Kansas City's own Wes Scantlin, this time up in Sturgis, where he was pulled over and once again refused to take a field sobriety test. And then was also found, I guess, with a couple ounces of pot on him. At this point, this is probably going to be my last story I ever tell about Wes Scantlin next to, hey, we just found out he died. Because it's just kind of, why? Either the dude's got like a serious death wish and doesn't have the courage to pull the trigger, or really needs some help, is screaming out for it and just can't get himself locked up. Either way, I'm done with stories about Puddle of Mudd and Wes Scantlin. Well, since 1994, the House of Blues on the Sunset Strip out in Los Angeles has been rocking crowds the world over, or whatever, something like that. Final show happened this week with Steel Panther. They're going to go ahead and close it up, I guess, and tear it down, and then add in some sort of like new hotel plus residence plus entertainment venue. A couple notable guests for the Steel Panther performance were both Billy Ray and Miley Cyrus. I got up there and jammed out to Def Leppard's Pour Some Sugar on Me, so hooray for progress, right? Well, this is kind of a bum deal out of the Gavin Rossdale, Gwen Stefani camp. If you recall, the No Doubt front woman and the Bush front man have been married for, I guess, 13 years now. They're going to go ahead and split up. They've got a couple of kids. On the opposite end of that, not splitting up, but maybe getting back together, Audioslave. It seems that the small reunion that happened between Chris Cornell, vocalist, and Tom Morello, guitarist, sparked conversations betwixt the two about possibly getting the band back together. If you remember, Audioslave was 3 parts Rage Against the Machine, 1 part Soundgarden. What was it, back in December, I think, of last year in Seattle. Those guys that got together, I believe, for Cornell's birthday party. I'm not entirely sure. But nonetheless, we may be seeing some sort of Audioslave reunion soon. And to wrap up your weekly rock wind-up with new music and if you will. Miss May I put out Deathlist today. Also announced today from Shinedown, their 5th studio album will come out on September the 18th, entitled Threat to Survival. Don't know exactly the full-on details of how this is going to be presented, but it seems that there is an epic, loud, dark fairy tale coming to us, I'm guessing in theaters. It'll have Grace Jones in it, Iggy Pop, Henry Rollins as of this week, Lemmy from Motorhead and Slayer's Tom Araya. It is entitled Gutender Damarang, and obviously this is from somewhere over in Europe and whatnot. But I guess the whole premise behind it is that it's a rock and roll film and a gig concept, where it's much in the tradition of the classic movies of the 1920s and the Hollywood. But instead of having the lone piano, it's going to have a live rock band to express the emotions and action. So once I get some more details about that, I'll make sure to fill you in. That sounds pretty rad. Drowning Pool talking about putting out a new album in 2016. They also just signed a worldwide deal with E-Music this week. E1 Music, excuse me. Do you know a guy named Dave Evans? He was AC/DC frontman for the very first year before Bon Scott took over. He wants to write a tell-all about AC/DC's very first year. Okay. And this one I think is pretty rad. It was formed back in 1972, Hollywood Vampires, and basically the premise of it was that musicians of that time, whether they lived in LA or just passing through, would have to outdrink one another, and that would make you part of the club. In the past, it included everybody from Jim Morrison, Mickey Dolenz, John Lennon, Keith Moon, Jimi Hendrix, and a few years ago, Alice Cooper, who was part of that group, decided to get the band back together, minus all the boozing. He worked with Johnny Depp, and they're going to put out an album that will have everybody on it, from Dave Grohl, Sir Paul McCartney, Joe Walsh, Robbie Krieger of The Doors, Brian Johnson, Kip Winger. It'll be out on September the 11th, and all the artist proceeds will be donated to Music Cares. So that looks pretty dope, man. I'm excited for that one. I'm Nivens. Thank you very much for tuning in to Weekly Rock Wind-Up. Have a great weekend.